I am here today again with my good friend Richard. Hello, Richard.
And it's good to be back.
Yes. Now, we meet every week or so and we talk about medical health issues. For those tuning in perhaps for the first time, Richard is a GP. If you're in America, that would be a family practitioner, your first port of call. He's also my friend and he's a Christian evangelist GP, which is awesome. And all that rolls together. And we have this little segment.
That's why we meet. We try to do something with medical and also Christian overtones. And and I'll do the same again today, hopefully.
Right, let me jump into a couple of questions that came in. And just by the way, if you want to send your questions in, you can do. Email me here, hello@pure247radio.org, hello@pure247radio.org, and we'll put your questions to Richard, as I'm about to do right now. Question 1. Here we go. I am confused about eye doctors. Maybe it's because I haven't needed to wear glasses until very recently, but I do not understand the difference between, let me get this right, an optician, an optometrist, and I think there's somebody called an ophthalmologist. Who should I see for my next eye test? I think I'm due for a checkup and I haven't had my eyes tested for a few years and may well need some input.
Okay, well, that's a very good question. First of all, the only doctor amongst them is the ophthalmologist, the last one you mentioned. But when people come with relatively minor eye problems, we first of all send them to an optician. So the optician, if you like, is the shop or the clinic, within which they will have optometrists who are trained, not just opticians, but have more training to become an optometrist, and will look with their machines right through to the back of your eye. And they are the first port of call. So if someone has something very simple like, I haven't had my eyes checked, my eyesight's going off a bit, fine, go to the opticians and you'll see an optometrist. To be honest, a general optician will probably be able to manage it as well. But if I have a serious eye problem, so for example, somebody comes and they've had symptoms which might be a detached retina, one of the more common things we see, or glaucoma getting out of control, it's far quicker in England to see an optometrist in the opticians than it is to see an ophthalmologist. So I send them there first of all, and they will look with their machines. They're very expert at the back of the eye. If they're happy with what they see, say the eye pressures are fine, there's no retinal detachment, that's fine. That's the end of the story. If they're not happy, they would then send them on to an ophthalmologist. There are other conditions where I would go straight to an ophthalmologist. So if you like, the ophthalmologist is in the hospital, is the absolute specialist. But opticians and optometrists are very good at what they do. They can certainly do all the simple stuff very well and far better than GPs.
I had my eyes tested recently and this is new. I haven't seen this one before, but he was taking photos of my eye in different, I don't even know what it was, but he was showing me the photos and he was showing me the surface of the eye, inner eye stuff and like all these little speckles. Yeah, they're normal. Oh, this is a reaction. So you've got this like fuzzy thing. That's a good thing. I'm thinking that's not good. Oh no, that's healthy. He said that's a good reaction to the light. So I was quite amazed at some of the stuff that I haven't actually had before.
And the quality of the pictures is stunning.
Oh, yeah.
And, not only does it give you a picture of where we are now, but for particularly people with ongoing eye conditions, they can then compare now to previously and obviously with the future. So, yes, I mean, I think anything of any note should have a picture these days taken, not just someone looking at it there and then.
I was impressed. I've had my eyes tested since I was 16, so like 30 years, and I've had various things done over the years. But the number of photos and the level of stuff that he was able to get was genuinely quite impressive. I've got to be honest.
It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. Which is why the one area we send people to all the time is eyes. We can do simple ears and simple most of the rest of the body, but eyes just are a bit more difficult. You need sometimes to dilate the pupil. We certainly haven't got all the kit to look at the back of the eye. They're just so expert. It's almost not worth GPs having a look, certainly for the back of the eye. Anything at the front of the eye, say conjunctivitis, foreign body, things like that, that's fine. But anything at the back of the eye, we send them on.
Yeah, the only thing that did worry me was all this fuzzy stuff here, and I'm thinking, fuzzy stuff does not sound good on anything to do with me. Thanks very much.
Well,
no, he said that's good. That's a reaction as it should be.
Sort of layman's term, isn't it? So wouldn't worry about it. If he says it's not to worry about, don't worry.
He said it was a really good example of what it should be, but it was just the way he started. I thought, hang on a minute, where are we going with this? Right, another question for you comes in. I think I understand the difference between this is testing my ability to speak now, isn't it? The difference between a podiatrist and an orthopedist, but I'm still not sure who I should go to if I had a problem. Also, are these services available through the NHS? If so, how do I get to them? It's recommended to see a dentist every 6 months, an optician or optometrist every 2 years. But what about visiting a podiatrist? Our feet get a hammering, so should we have regular checkups?
Well, you should have regular checkups if you have a particular condition, diabetes. Absolutely. Otherwise, no, you only have a checkup really or go to see somebody if you have a problem. So what do podiatrists do? Well, they're particularly good, number one, at just giving you a general impression on the foot, but dealing with simple conditions. But they also, some of them are podiatric surgeons. They've had some surgical training so they can deal with more serious things like a bunion, where the operation is not that difficult, but it's pretty major to recover from. Whereas orthopedic surgeons, well, they're more specialist. You do get foot specialists, and they will be better than podiatrists, absolutely, and will deal with any difficult conditions in terms of diagnosis or treatment. But podiatrists, these days have much more training than they used to, and some of them, are good operators. So, terrible toenails, for example, as I've already mentioned, bunions, and also just a general information about, what do we think is wrong with my foot. But again, the first port of call in England would be the GP. And then we can move you in the right direction if we can't deal with it ourselves. And a lot of things we can deal with. So I think go and see your GP, first of all, or your family practitioner in America. And they will then move you either towards a podiatrist or, if things are a bit worse, a proper orthopedic surgeon.
I did once look for someone because I didn't do very well looking after my toes. It's just, hands up, I did not do good. Anyway, we found somebody at local surgery, and it was one of the GP practice nurses who also specialised in feet, and it's something she did privately on the side. And she was brilliant because all these horror stories about what they're going to do. She was everything was proper surgical steel. She had a special, what's the thing? Is it the autoclave thing that everything was like that standard? And it was just, wow, you're good.
Yeah, and if you are doing anything at all practical, you need to have proper kit as well as some training.
And she was great because, of course, she was a nurse as well, so she already has kind of a much better understanding. Yeah. Though she managed to get my nails a little bit less near the toe bed,
a little bit less nasty.
Yeah, I was cutting too tight, and she says, "Oh, you got to stop cutting your toenails so far down." Oh well, sorry about that. Anyway, she fixed it, and information about what to do.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. I mean, I think prevention as well as cure, isn't it?
Absolutely. On the diabetes, why is diabetes? I sort of assume diabetes feet there's a problem, but I don't know why.
Because so often they run into trouble, not least with infections, and with raised sugar in your blood, bugs love it. And also, not only is the sugar there for them to eat, but the diabetics' response is worse. So they're much more likely to get foot infections, number one. And if they do, it's much more liable to go bad and septic. So diabetics should really have their feet tested regularly. Also, they can lose sensation of diabetes because it affects the nerves. And then you can get ulcers, which can, erode into the bone. I mean, I don't want to get too dramatic, but diabetics should always have their eyes checked every year and their feet checked every year.
But if you're worried about things because it doesn't look right, doesn't feel right, doesn't smell right, go and see a doctor.
Your doctor. That's what we're here for. As I always say to people, if my car squeaks, I don't make a bad diagnosis. I go and see a mechanic. If your body squeaks, you come.
You don't go on Google and buy a little ratchet set from Halfords and have a crack.
How many people do go on Google? But no, you're much better off seeing somebody who knows what they're talking about, hopefully.
Right. We don't want body mechanics who've got no experience. What have you got for us tonight then, Richard?
So, my wife, Heather, who's also a family doctor, retires next week. We're both 64. We met at medical school all those years ago. I'm carrying on into 2025 for a bit, certainly. But she retires next week. So it got me thinking, retirement, what will she do? And what does the Bible say about retirement? And, you get this general advice, don't rush into things. Anyway, there's lots in retirement, and we're just going to look at a couple of things today, Andy. I think because I've been triggered by what Heather will be happening. Her last day is December the 17th, and we heard today that one of our medical school friends is finishing on December the 23rd. So it happens to us because of our age, but it got me thinking. And I know that she's going to spend a month in January, as she always does, with our middle daughter Grace and her kids up in the Midlands. That's lovely. Then I think she wants to walk across England. There's a walk from Iona to Lindisfarne across the north of England. Takes about 3 to 4 weeks, and that'll be a really good time to hear from God. You know, what are you saying for the rest of my life, Lord? I know there's lots going on in her church. There's a new vicar, a new curate, and a new professional worship leader. Church of England have really put a lot of money into it, and he's a great chap, the vicar, and lots happening already. Numbers are increasing. You know, they did a sort of a beer and carols evening in the local bar. You know, things are happening. But for Heather, you know, what do I join in with? What's God's plan? So that's where I'm going with it, if that's okay. And I'll carry on. So it got me thinking, what's next in our lives? Obviously, this applies particularly to people retiring, but not exclusively. And so, Andy, this applies to someone of your middle age, dare I say, younger listeners and older listeners, and even people who've already retired. You know, what's next? And then, of course, not of course, but then last weekend, I went to a show, The Messiah, in a church in Deal, which is about 40 minutes away from Margate. And I ran to the vicar, and I've done alpha courses with him many times over the years, and I hadn't seen him for some time. And I said, how are you getting on? Well, I had a sabbatical recently. What did God say? Well, I was looking for him to say, leave this church, move on elsewhere, but he didn't. So I'm staying. And there's lots happening, including showing this Messiah. But, he's asking the question that we're all asking, particularly as we get older. Lord, what is it? What's next? So I was thinking, whether you're a doctor like us or an accountant, a radio DJ like Andy, a labourer, a librarian, doesn't matter. If we live long enough, we'll retire. But even if we don't, don't wait till retirement. What has God got planned next for us? Now, tell you why I was influenced, and I don't know if I mentioned this to you before, Andy, but when I was growing up as a kid in Cheshire, I had some neighbours just a bit down the road on the opposite side. And I went to see them one day, and they'd retired. Oh, even as a youngster, that's interesting. That's a big change. Oh, yeah. And I see the husband, he played golf 2 to 3 times a week. And the wife played golf 4 or even 5 times a week. And even as a kid of about 7 or 8, I thought, really? Is that it? Is that what retirement's about? I love sport. I'll play football. I used to play a lot of hockey, play some tennis when I can, run with the dog. But hitting a little white ball into a hole 5 times a week, really? Is that what life is about when we retire? It got me thinking. Others, friends of mine who are already retired as doctors, seem to be spending all their living hours on beaches, going from one holiday to the next. But how does that fit with our Christian faith? What has God got to say about retirement? So I thought I'd turn to the Bible for some advice. And I came across a couple of quotes. There's loads of stuff on being old, but in relation to retirement, not so much. But here's a couple of quotes. And one was from Joshua, chapter 13 and verse 1. And you've probably got it there. Actually, I'll leave it for you. You can get it up on because you're quicker than me flicking through my Bible, because you'll have it on your phone. Joshua chapter 13 and verse 1.
It's coming.
It's coming.
Yeah, Joshua. I lost Joshua 13:1. Here we go. When Joshua was an old man, the Lord said to him, "You are growing old, and much land remains to be conquered."
Right. So now at this time, I was looking at a commentary on this. He was somewhere between 85 and 100. He was a proper old man. But God is saying, yeah, you're old, but there's still some work to do. And he didn't say, hive it off to everybody else. There's still some work to do. And off they carry on. He said, again, God says, okay, you're going to divide this up between the various tribes. But Joshua, there's still some work for you to do at 85 to 100. And I was thinking about this, and of course, being old hopefully means you're wise, hopefully means you're experienced, and you can, but it doesn't say retire. God is encouraging us still to do some work. So that's the first one just to hold on to. Joshua was told by the Lord there's still some work to do. Second one was Numbers chapter 8 and verses 25 to 26.
Numbers. They've changed the app thing, and it doesn't work the same as it used to, and it's really annoying now. Everything's in a weird order. 25.
5 to 26.
And they must retire at the age of full 50. After retirement, they may assist their fellow Levites by serving as guards are at the tabernacle, but they may not officiate in the service. This is how you must assign duties to the Levites.
So God is talking here specifically about the Levites, the priestly class. So he's talking about priests. And he's saying to them, at 50, you must retire. Now, it seemed that there was some build-up when you read the passage beforehand. They don't actually start working as priests until 25. So they had a relatively short span, but of course people didn't live as long overall in those days. Now, they could do some assisting afterwards, so they weren't just to sign off completely, but their particular job changed at 50. Whereas for Joshua, we're told, you're a very old man, but there's still work to do. And so we've got two sort of tensions here, where the Levites was told, actually, no, you're stopping being a priest, but you can still volunteer, you can still assist. Joshua, you're carrying on. So in other words, there's no hard and fast rules here, as far as I can see, but putting both together, but as believers, we should still remain within God's service. Age, and this is a nice little quote from my Bible, age does not disqualify us or excuse us from God's service. So I thought, well, that's interesting. So I don't see how we can spend all our time in the golf course. I don't see that we can spend all our time on holidays, even though we know that Jesus took time out from time to time, but that was time out from his work. Then I was thinking, well, you go to Apostle Paul, what did he have to say? Well, he talks, doesn't he, about finishing the race, meaning the race of life. Races have beginnings and ends. He didn't say just stop on the last lap. Get to the last bend, that's okay. No. Finish the race, breast the tape. And he was a busy man, even in the last 2 years of his life under house arrest in Rome. He was still as active as best he could. And famous Christians have carried on to the end. I think of Michael Green, who I worked with very briefly in Scotland towards the end of his life. Tony Campolo, famous Christian, died, I think, last week. And so that's, he carried on right to the end. And our friend Steve Legg, that Andy and I know, he, even when he was in his last days in hospital with cancer, he was cracking jokes to the nurses, but also telling them about his faith. That was a man who finished the race. And of course, Jesus. Did Jesus sign off? I don't think so. Even on the cross in agony, he was thinking about others, ensuring his mother will be looked after, praying a prayer of forgiveness for those crucifying him, and even rewarding the thief next to him who showed faith right at the end. So how should we be as Christians in retirement? Well, I'm not looking at the details here. That's up to you and God. But I think that Christians don't retire. I always joke that we don't retire. We simply stop getting paid. So those Levites who finished at 50, yeah, you can carry on assisting, etc. I don't know how the situation was in those days. They didn't have to farm their own land. They were looked after, generally speaking. But I think overall, we're encouraged to keep on serving the Lord in one way or another, which of course is very satisfying. Yes, we can go on holiday, and we can even play the odd game of golf, but keep serving the Lord. And I'll be interested to see where Heather goes with this. And maybe I'll update you in maybe a year's time when I see where retirement leads her. But it won't be simply sitting on a golf course or a beach, that I'm for sure.
I'm curious about this. When you become a new parent, the world seems to descend upon your house with a million pieces of advice that you really, really must follow. Has she had the same as she hits retirement?
Well, not yet, because she hasn't quite retired.
Okay.
I'd be interested. Thank you. It's a good question. When she has actually retired, which will be, in a week's time, less than a week's time now, 17th, we'll see. And that will be interesting to say. Everybody says, don't sign up for anything, don't get involved, take 6 months off. That seems to be general wisdom. And she's going to take a bit of time off. But equally, as Christians, we mustn't just follow worldly wisdom. Because a lot of worldly wisdom is, you've worked really hard. Look after yourself. It's all about you now. Well, actually, that's not what the Bible says. It's all about God. It's all about Jesus. And of course, when we serve him, it's not, it's not just work. It's fun. And, it's our passion, isn't it? Within inside us. Jeremiah said, I've got this fire inside. I can't keep it in. It's going to come out. And that's how it should be with us as Christians as we get older. Yeah, we might have not quite as much energy. Might need to take a bit more rest. Absolutely, I get that. And God gets that. He made us. But I think signing off It isn't an option for Christians, and that's a poor way of looking at things.
I think also you mentioned about Jesus, how he would take time out. But the thing is, he didn't take time out from his job. He took time out to be with God.
In order that he might do his job better.
Yeah.
He was amazingly busy, but he still took time out. Well done.
But his
What
time out,
a mentor he is.
Well, exactly. He didn't just stop and go to the golf course. He stopped and then went to the Father, and he still went to the temple. So, it's not a question of, I'm 65, that's it. I haven't got to go to church again. That's not how this works.
Also, the little phrase that comes to me, be still and know that I am God. Be still means sit in my presence, receive from me, learn the unfathomed rhythms of grace, that you'll just learn from me. And then off you go and do stuff. But yes, of course we can have a good time. And Jesus had a good time. He'd go to weddings. He'd have feasts. People accused him of being a glutton at times. Well, no, he was going to a feast, but he was often working during the feast, wasn't he? We know that. So it's that mixture of work and play. And yeah, he was the ultimate illustration of how to get it right. And my challenge, Heather's challenge, as we get older and the R word crops up, is how to get it right, really.
Mm. I think it's easy, isn't it, though, as humans, we can go one way. Okay, well, I'm just going to stop and play golf. And I don't know that the mind and the body will probably thank you quite so much. I mean, the golf will be good for you.
You'll be bored and you'll be upset and you'll be fed up and you won't know why. And the reason is because you're not living life as the maker planned.
Yeah, but I didn't even know retirement came in at all. But even on the surface of that piece from Joshua 13 verse 1 and Numbers 8:25, they seem to contradict, but I really don't think they do. Joshua, keep going, there's work to do. Numbers, retire at 50, but it's retiring from a specific function that was their life's work, which in a sense, that's where retirement, you could argue, well, that's when you stop. But it's stop from doing a thing, not stop from doing everything.
And that wonderful phrase that people use about retiring, putting new tires on. It's like a car which has just been freshly tired. You've got TYRE, and that's I think a good way of looking at retirement. We've been retired. Okay, where's the car going next?
I also think that, having worked in churches a little bit, and there are sort of age groups in church where you think, well, what can a 2-week toddler do? A 2-year-old toddler do? They're useless. They're too young. What can the 85-year-old granny do? They're too old. And actually, what's beautiful about God's kingdom is we all have a purpose and a place. None of us is excluded. And I love that line, which I'm going to read out. Age does not exclude or excuse us. And it's that excuse word which I think, that's interesting.
Isn't it? That was challenging. That was in the commentary in my Bible. And I thought, oh, dear me, I'm going to have to bring that onto the program. I didn't write it. I'm, as you know, I will bring anything from anybody else that's any good to this program and to my preaching, because why not? God gives us all different insights, and if I come across an insight, great. Somebody else can borrow it, and equally, I'm very happy to borrow other people's insights. But absolutely, we get retired with a Y, and it doesn't excuse us. Absolutely, it doesn't.
I like that retired thing, as in new fresh tires for the next. I really like that. I like
as a lorry driver, you can get that in Formula One. When the tires are wearing down, they're no good. What they need is new tires, which is why they keep stopping, don't they? And how they put 4 tires on in 4 seconds, I've no idea. but suddenly off they can go again. But for us, it's a bit different, because those Formula One drivers are just doing the same thing. They're going around the track just a tad faster. Our direction may be a bit different, or it may be the same. God may say, no, actually, these are your gifts. I want you to carry on using them. So, I'm going to be very interested, and I will let you know what Heather gets up to. And when the time comes for me, Lord, what are you doing?
I'm fascinated, but one of the things I'm very conscious of in a world where so many children don't know their dads, and that is such an epidemic. Just forget the world, just the UK. It is a massive issue. Mental health amongst the youth and the teenagers, particularly. That's where grandparents can come in. And just saying, they don't need to be your grandkids for you to behave in a grandparent-like way.
Good, very good. And one of the lovely things that's been increasingly recognised is this link between, say, primary schools and nursing homes, which not only benefits the old people because they, it's a little bit of life coming into their sometimes dreary lives, but equally they benefit the kids, and especially if these kids have had a hard life, and suddenly a bit of gentle grandparently wisdom and love and friendship makes a big difference. So it's a win-win.
And I think we've said this point probably several times, but we kind of ignore the past at our peril, and that includes the wisdom that's grown over 65 years worth of life. All of a sudden, they're not useless. Even that, just the statement just baffles me. How can we even consider that to be the case?
Well, you're right, and of course, in the modern world, it seems to sort of really prioritize the youth, and the youth needs some prioritizing, but should not be at the expense of the elderly. The elderly have got so much to give, and one of the things that Heather loves doing is talking in a bit more detail to some of the elderly, and then discovers, my goodness, wow, what you did in the war, fantastic, or since then, wow, I had no idea, and it's absolutely eye-opening and eye-boggling that some of these people have done far more in their lives than we will, and they've got something to share.
Absolutely. I mean, as you're looking ahead, obviously your wife's retiring in days. You're looking yourself next year. Not how you're feeling about it, that's a stupid question, but how is sort of emotions of, well, she's retiring and I'm going to retire, and obviously it's going to change the dynamic of your relationship after you've met.
Well, and also
work.
We've worked together all these years. We've worked together for so many years. It is odd, and I know she's finding it a bit odd. It's lovely when patients are nice and give you a box of chocolates or give you a hug and a kiss. That's nice, but it actually, gosh, how am I going to be without seeing patients, which has been part of our DNA for 41 years? But I think that's something that we have to recognise, that we are not primarily a doctor. We're a Christian.
Yeah,
we're a child of God. We're a human being. Yeah, doctoring has been good, and it's been helpful, hopefully, to people along the way, and as well as to ourselves. It's been a lovely profession, but that doesn't define us. And also, the past doesn't define us. We say that, don't we, to people? The past doesn't define you. God's got a new plan for the future. Well, and dare I say, we need to apply it to ourselves.
I mean, just coming back on that one, I think that is, when I think about people who retire, and that there are stereotypical stories of, hey, he retired at 65, he was dead within a month because he never did anything. Well, there's maybe some logic behind the reason of not just stopping everything. Yeah, go and hit a ball on a golf course if that's your thing. Not mine at all, but anyway, maybe it's yours. But actually, that dead stop isn't great. We see it in teachers, don't we, when they have 6 weeks off and the first week is ill because they've just stopped. Well, it's a good reason to keep doing something.
And do a bit of planning in advance, whilst not, sort of making yourself hostage to fortune by signing up for stuff that you then actually think afterwards, I didn't really want to do that. So I think it's great that she's going to have some time just sort of babysitting for a month in January. Then she's going to have this walk across Britain. Yeah, I think after that, she might be in a better position to say, okay, this is what I think God is saying.
Whatever your age, you are never excused from serving God because he has a place for you. You are made on purpose and with a purpose, regardless of your age. Richard, thank you. I'm fascinated to see how Heather fares with how much advice she gets. I remember being a parent and all these people come out of the woodwork of, you must do this, you mustn't do that, and you're thinking, all right, but if I followed all that advice, I'd probably be dead by the time I finished doing it all. So can we just take the most relevant bits? So I'm fascinated to know, is there a similarity between becoming a new parent and becoming a retired parent?
That's a very good question. Well, I shall let you know in the course of time.
I'm genuinely interested. Right, Richard, thank you as ever. If you want to know anything more about retirement, or you got any thoughts or questions on this, and indeed anything else, you can ask Richard via us with hello@pure247radio.org. hello@pure247radio.org. Send your questions to Dr. Richard Scott GP. Thank you, Richard.
And a pleasure as ever.
The Pure newsletter comes out once a month and is designed to build up, entertain and encourage you. Sign up for our newsletter at pure247radio.org.